it's Nori.
And Kel.
And today we want to raise our connections with you by talking about
relationship and dating tips.
And so this month, because it is February, we wanted to do a little bit of what helps us stay connected and how our relationship stays strong.
Sometimes.
So we're going to talk about relationship tips first. And our first tip is
communication is key.
Say what you want to say, but your partner has to understand that the things that you are saying are not directly to hurt them. Mm-hmm. So she understands that anything that I do say or how I'm feeling is not intended to directly hurt her.
Yes, and majority of our relationship has been long distance. Mm-hmm. So I've been on deployment and she's been on deployment. So we're almost not always together. So we always have to communicate with each other almost every day because sometimes our messages get misconstrued text-wise. So when you hear it, the tone is different than you read on text or messages. So we made it a priority to always communicate with each other because, again, her way of saying things is different than the way I would take it, and then vice versa as well. So it always helps when we see each other and then say it to each other because, again, the delivery of that message is definitely different than what we would interpret it to be in our minds, you know?
And to be fair, we're absolutely not professionals at this. And so we're still learning and practicing communicating with each other to this day.
That's why communication is just key in our relationship because, again, whether we are far away from each other or literally together in the same room, it's just helpful whenever we just voice it out and vent it out, so that it's just out of our chest so that there's no inner grudge that you can hold back on each other, That we will be sharing is don't compare your last relationship. Every relationship is different than the last.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that I think of that also is like I'm different from who I was with the previous relationship versus who I am in our relationship. So, you can't blame somebody else's wrongs on the next person because that only hinders you and your future relationships.
And if anything, it would actually help you learn from your last to be better. Like the previous mistakes, hopefully it doesn't repeat in the same one or in the next relationship that you'll have, and instead you'll just grow from the previous relationship that you've had, The next tip that we're going to be sharing is try new things together, like exploring new adventures, eating at a new restaurant, or traveling together. That's what always kept us strong in our relationship is that we always like to learn something new, and we, from that experience, we will like reflect on it together, like how was that restaurant? Like, did you like the food that we ate there,
Yeah, and it's interesting because it also helps you push each other out of your comfort zone. Maybe that restaurant or that activity was not necessarily like, the thing you would go to.
Yeah. So the next relationship tip that we would suggest is continue to date each other. We always try to at least implement it at least once a month or sometimes twice a month just to keep that fire kindle going, because of course sometimes it dips, but then you got to pick it back up, you know what I mean? Even though you're married to someone, it still helps to continue to date your spouse or your significant other.
Yeah, and it's very easy. I mean, throughout the week, Monday through Friday, your schedule is to go to work or go to school or do those things. And, you're like, at this time I'm getting ready for work. And then at this time I'm at work. From this time to this time I'm at work. And it's very easy to live Monday through Friday repetitively. And then, of course, Saturday and Sunday, you just want to relax.
For example, on our anniversary, our date, we went to a bed and breakfast in Langley here in Washington, and the activity that we were doing was how would you say it?
I guess picking the grapes or cutting them off of the vine.
Harvesting. We were harvesting for the farm because it was their time to pick the grapes and then help them, or we technically volunteer
Yeah.
to help them produce their wine that they actually make at their bed and breakfast. So it was definitely something that we don't do on a daily basis, you know. So it also got us out of our comfort zone, and we definitely were still learning from each other. And we never knew that you're picking grapes are like literally kind of rotten grapes or fermented grapes, you know. So it definitely gave us a better appreciation of wine.
Yes.
Wineries, yes.
All the work that they do. But yeah, and it's interesting. And I know, like, granted, for some people, you know, you have children and like pets and all kinds of, you know, other life, you know, duties that you need to get done that sometimes, you know, once a week or twice a month isn't necessarily a thing. But you can do little things, you know, just go on a long drive with your spouse. We like to do that. We actually do our best communication and thinking on long drives. Odd, but we definitely do. So I mean, granted, yeah, you can do something simple like that. You don't necessarily have to stay in a bed and breakfast. You can just go on a long drive and call that as, you know, your date while, you know, somebody watches the kids or something like that. Or even while the kids are asleep, you know, like go into the bedroom, put on a movie. That can be your date night, something simple, and you're at home. No one has to watch the kids. You don't need to get a babysitter, you know, but it's still a set time that you guys allotted specifically for each other.
Our next relationship tip is that we try not to go to sleep mad at each other. We try to resolve whatever problems we had before the day ends.
Yeah, try is the key word.
Yes. And, you know, I believe that holding grudges is definitely a big thing, especially if you sleep through it and then when you wake up you're still mad, you know. And I always try to make sure that I try to resolve the problem or whatever conflict that we've had throughout the day to end it, crush it during that day, no matter how long it takes, you know, because again, it's just not going to do you any good to your relationship by just sleeping with a grudge and then waking up to a grudge the next day.
I typically will go to sleep sometimes angry, and I won't tell her, and I will just do one of these and go to sleep. And then I wake up in the morning and I am still pissed. For what? No idea. And then in the morning, I have to, like, I notice when I do that, I have to do some recon, which is much harder because now I'm waking up. I'm upset for no reason. Now I'm starting a whole new day pissed. So now I'm sitting here making my coffee and I'm like, breathe, let it go. Like, I have to do my own recon to not be upset because I just brought it to tomorrow. And so I'm really working very hard on trying to, like, again with the communication, if I'm upset, you're gonna know. And then just be done. Because 9 times out of 10, it comes down to miscommunication. For me, at least, now I realize it's so much harder to not be upset the next day because then it pisses me off. I'm upset that I'm upset from yesterday. That's how I feel the next morning if I go to sleep mad, you know, at her.
Yeah, that's why I always, like, try to tell her, like, forgive and forget, you know what I mean? It's definitely a learning curve or concept of trying to get rid of your grudge, you know, especially like we try not to go to sleep mad at each other, so I tell her like forgive and forget, you know, you just gotta like ease it into her, you know. So and I try to breathe it out, you know, like I try not to get pissed and upset, you know, because it's just not going to do you any good and for your significant other. So breathing exercises help to like calm the mind, calm the nerves, and then resolve the problem.
This one here, anytime we're upset, she's like, okay, let's take 6 deep breaths, and I'm sitting here on fire, and I'm like, you want me to take 6 deep breaths? Are you kidding me? But it actually helps.
It definitely
helps. It sounds so crazy, but like obviously at the moment when you're heated, I'm like, I do not want to breathe. Like that's how upset I am.
Yeah.
But it definitely helps because it forces you to stop. So yeah.
Yep. It's just like an exercise that you gotta try to like mentally battle within your inner self. Like breathe and then let it go,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Of course, I'm coach, so it definitely helps to just like tell her the same thing, you know. And it's just crazy that the stuff works. Like it's simple, but still, you need to continue practicing it. You know, you just never know who it's gonna help. So the next relationship tip that we would like to share is to invest in each other, whether it's hobbies, personal interests, businesses. If you have any one of those will definitely help rekindle your relationship with your significant other.
Yeah, and granted, like, you know, her investing is not necessarily my go-to joy, right? That's not, but for me, it's crafting, and that's not at all her go-to joy. But there's certain things where it's like, she'll learn a little bit about Disney because Disney's my thing as well, and she'll ask questions. And I'll ask questions about her investing or her coaching or how things are going, just to learn where she's at and like let her know that I support her throughout that journey. You know what I mean? Especially with, other interests, photography, gym, investing, coaching, all the above. You want to be able to make sure that your partner or spouse feels supported.
Yes, and like for Nori, she's been getting into roller skating. So I've been able to get back into, I don't roller skate, but I do inlines. So whenever she goes to the skate park to like practice on her skills, of course I would be there to support her and just record her with my inlines
Yeah.
and then sometimes fall, you know, like it's all part of the experience of investing in each other's hobbies, you know?
It's just little things like that to show that you support them, that you're interested in what they're learning, and the fact that, your partner or your spouse is already putting themselves in a vulnerable state because they're sharing what they truly love and, like, what makes them happy or giddy inside.
The next relationship tip that we would like to suggest or share is don't overthink the situation. It's just all in your head. So, like sometimes, like what we were just talking about, communication wise, when it comes to messages, don't misconstrue what the actual message is, because sometimes it's just as simple as don't be mad at me, or don't go to bed mad at me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm one of those people who replay things in their minds over and over and over again. I also will think, well, if I said this, would it have been different? If I did this, would the outcome have been different? Which at the end of the day, whatever had happened, it's already happened. All you can do is change what the next thing is going to happen by your actions. And so, yeah, that definitely is very important. So those were our relationship tips / suggestions. And now we're going to go into some dating ideas and dating tips.
One of the first things that we try to do with our dating tips is make it low cost if possible. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture or anything, because of course it's all in the creativity.
What really matters is that you guys are spending time with each other. So the cost really, you could just be creative with it and a little bit more sentimental. And I always find that when you're low cost or being more creative, you're not worried about, well, how much money am I spilling out? You're really more thinking, is my partner, is my spouse going to enjoy this? Is this something that they will value? Will we both value this moment?
I agree. And it's like when you have a low cost and you're being creative with the date, that means like you're being more sentimental with your actual actions by putting so much thought into the movie night, you know what I mean, and making sure that the kids are in bed and whatnot, so that there's less distraction for you and your significant other to actually spend time and have that moment together to share. So another tip that we have for date night is game nights. Even though it's not a big thing to a lot of people, it wasn't a big thing for us, but once we started having game nights, it's actually pretty challenging to like just challenge each other and like trash talk each other while you're playing games, because again, your only best opponent would be either your significant other and yourself, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, just being silly, and game night also can work with family.
Starting game nights or having game nights and making it a tradition in your family is definitely a good way of rekindling or reconnecting with your family members and or your significant other as well, and just taking a break from everything around the world. Next dating tip is do something, single or taken, by writing a letter to yourself or to each other. So that was one of the first things that's been actually ongoing in our relationship, and that's what's been a continuous thing since I've been on the road or she's been on the road. So we would write letters back and forth.
For example, we have little these little index cards, and they have little things like a bucket list. There's memory lane, what we did, or there's jokes in here, there's quotes in here, and you can write yourself little index cards, and then put them away, and then in a month from now, go ahead and open them. You're like, that's interesting, because of course, you kind of forget what you wrote. So this could be for yourself or for your spouse, and it's sentimental. It's a little bit more of for me at least, it holds more value because you took the time to think about what you wanted to write and what would make me feel loved.
Yes, and one of the times is when before I went on deployment, I would surprise Nori by putting these little cards in random places all over the house. The refrigerator, the guitar, and the bathroom. Where was this one at?
This was in my nightstand, and it said, "I will always sleep right by your side every day for the rest of our lives. I love you." And there was one in my perfume. Yeah. So those little cards, they were everywhere, and I would open one that really. There was one in the fridge. She put one in the fridge. There was one in the spice rack that said I can't wait for you to cook for me again. A little thing. There was one in my sock drawer that said keep your feet warm. It was just so cute. It's even though I've read them, I literally kept them in the exact same spots because it was so cute, and just a cute little reminder that wherever I went, she still thought about me in those little areas, like my socks.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to dating or when you're in a relationship with someone or of course with yourself, you just want to remind yourself that you do still care for that person, you know what I mean? And it can be as simple as these little notes, because of course it's just a reflection back to you. Hey, you're awesome, you're beautiful, I still love you no matter what. So these were just little reminders for me to let her know that, hey, even though I'm not physically here, I still love you, and I always want to make sure that she sees that and she knows that, that I'm not going to go anywhere.
She's going to make me cry again.
And for this year, we've been trying to work much more harder in our relationship. It's not like we're struggling in our relationship, but we're trying to keep our relationship stronger. And so we invested in this book. It's a couples daily book, and we try to continue doing this on a daily basis by just trying to get to know each other, and it'll also grow within 3 years. So imagine when you go back next year, January 1, you're going to see what you wrote a year ago, and you're like, oh, wow, that's interesting,
Yeah, and the great thing about this book is that the questions are so simple. If you could be a wild animal, what would it be? You know what I mean? The questions are super simple. One or two, not even sentences, probably one sentence to answer these questions, and it's a great way to it says daily reflection for couples, so it's a great way to look back into it, like she said, 3 years from now, and you look back and you're like, why did we say that?
Yeah.
Why did we think that about that question, or whatever the case is.
So yeah, if in case you're not following us, we definitely do our daily journals on this book in our TikTok. So if you really want to try seeing what we technically kind of do, you can follow us there and see what we write, and then follow us maybe 3 years from now.
Yeah, and you can see all the questions that are being asked as well. And then maybe you can kind of ask yourself the same questions that we're writing about in our TikToks.
A next dating tip that we usually like to do is we like to plan ahead. And with that being said, more like planning traffic time, weather, COVID precautions, especially now in today's society, and making reservations. You know, it's all about time management.
Where we live, especially in Seattle, most restaurants will ask to see your proof of vaccination, and so it's just kind of little things. Or when you drive into Seattle, traffic is insane during certain times. So of course, if you have reservations, you want to make sure that you're there on time. If it's an outdoor event, you probably will get rained on, so you should wear, the right jacket or a hat or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just be ready for whatever the weather is. Either if it's raining or cold or warm, just dress appropriate for it. Especially if you're really wanting to date this person, you want to make a good impression. But again, you just want to dress appropriate together.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like she loves to do this, where she loves to plan events and not tell me where it is. She will tell me, this is the date, we have to be there at this time, and you need to dress like this. Those are the 3 things that I know, and I just show up. So,
in my defense, it's for a surprise, okay? So just like I like to plan our dates so that she doesn't get surprised and be like, oh, you should have told me to wear this or whatever. Because I know how she is. We all know, everybody, I know you're going to agree with me on this.
You better not.
You
better not agree.
You've dated someone who would be like, you should have told me to dress like this. Oh my God, I should have brought a sweater. Agree or disagree? I know for those who are listening while you're driving, I know you're nodding your heads. So yes, thank you for agreeing with me.
Thank you. And for those who are listening who are just like me, we like to be prepared, okay? And we want to have options. So that is why I like to know where we're going. And I'm also very controlling, and I like to plan every little bit.
Our next dating tip is to make sure you have fun. Like with all the planning and all that kind of stuff and being all creative, you want to make sure that you, your date, your significant other, your spouse will have fun. Whatever you plan, just have fun, because at the end of the day, it's a memory now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be something you're definitely going to share or learn from.
Yeah, and sometimes dates don't go as well as you expect them to do. For example, when she was surprising me for our proposal for the Michael Bublé concert, I had no idea. Our Uber driver actually killed the surprise. He said, oh, where are you guys going? Just to make, small talk. Obviously, he knows where we're going. And she says, oh, to the Tacoma Dome. And our Uber driver goes, oh, to see Michael Bublé. And I was like, I had no clue. He killed the surprise. But it's still, like, to this day, it's such a funny story to tell that our Uber driver killed this surprise that she's had for I don't even know how long.
Yeah.
So...
yeah, it was such I planned the surprise for a long time, and we were so close to getting to the event, and he ruined it. And when I was like, it was supposed to be a surprise, he was like, oh, I hope it doesn't ruin my ratings.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, bro, don't worry about it. I knew eventually she was going to find out.
But now it's such a funny story, and I love sharing this story because it's definitely one of those, this wouldn't happen to you. But it did.
Yeah.
It definitely did. And our proposal got ruined by our Uber driver. I don't even remember his name. But yeah. It's so funny because she planned everything for, I don't know, months.
Mm-hmm. And
he ruined it like that. So, but now we laugh at it, So just have fun and don't take everything too seriously. Things happen.
Mm-hmm. Our next dating tip is, when you're on a date with someone, just make sure you get off your phone and enjoy the moment. Like, of course, we are always caught up in social media and all, but being in the moment is not, you're not going to get that back, So when you're on a date with someone or your significant other, be in that moment, be present, put that phone down, turn off your notifications, and give that person that 1 hour or 2 hours or the whole day of attention, because of course, they deserve it, you know what I mean? And you deserve it too. So take that break, get off your phone, and enjoy the date.
So I am guilty of doing that as well, but I definitely have her to remind me to be in the moment.
Yeah, and I understand that you want to take a picture of your food, like right then and there, but then right after that, put the phone down. You know what I mean? Like, your food is going to be there, and but your date might not be there at the end of the time. So you just want to make sure you just enjoy that moment with that person, because again, at the end of the day, it will be a memory and it will be a story, good or bad. So
Yeah.
you just never know, but endure it,
Mm-hmm.
embrace it.
Yeah, I agree. If you guys have any other dating tips or relationship tips or any suggestions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. We'd actually love to see what you guys think about date nights or any dating tips that we can probably add to our routine or add to our relationship as well. Because, of course, we're all growing each and every day, right? So we'd love to hear from you guys. Our mission is to connect with you guys, and we can't wait to hear from you. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow us in all of our other social media platforms. And until next time, hang loose.
Hang loose.